The elderly woman saw an unfamiliar girl crying at her daughter's grave. When she got closer, she was horrified by what the girl was whispering. Emma walked slowly through the silent corridors of the Phoenix Cemetery, holding a bouquet of white flowers in one hand and a faded photo in the other. Arriving at her daughter's grave, named Claire, she knelt down with difficulty, placing the photo and flowers on the cold headstone. "Another year, my dear," she began, her trembling voice breaking the silence of the place. "It feels like just yesterday you were here with me, laughing and walking around. How I wish things were different." Emma ran her fingers over the photo, gently touching Claire's face. The memories of her daughter were still vivid in her mind, every smile, every hug, every painful goodbye until that fateful day. Claire Scott was a vibrant and lively young woman who, at 28 years old, worked as a graphic designer at a marketing company. She was known for her creativity, sharp sense of humor, and her ability to light up any room with her smile. The news of her death, which occurred 3 years ago, was a devastating blow to Emma and everyone who knew Claire. The car accident that took her life was described as a sudden tragedy. She was on her way home from a business trip when her car skidded on a wet curve and collided with a pole. The impact was so violent that it left little for the rescuers to identify, and Claire was declared dead at the scene. The tragic details of the accident were accepted without question at the time, fueled by the presence of adverse weather conditions reported that night. Her death left a void in her mother's life, who struggled to accept the reality of a world without her beloved daughter. Claire was an only child, and thus her loss was devastating for Emma, who found herself not only deprived of her daughter's presence, but also of her only close family. The emotional impact on Emma was profound. Visits to the grave became a sacred ritual, moments in which Emma felt she could connect with Claire. "They say time heals all wounds, but the pain only seems to grow deeper with the years," she continued, sighing as she looked at the headstone, the words, "Beloved daughter," engraved in the stone. "Could I have done something to prevent your death? My daughter, I miss you so much." Emma felt a mix of sadness and guilt, unanswered questions echoing in her mind as she spoke to the daughter she loved and lost. Suddenly the sound of sobbing broke the silence, pulling Emma from her thoughts. She looked around, noticing a small girl. The girl was saying, "Mommy, why did you die? I wish you were here with me. I love you so much. I miss you so much." Tears streamed down her face. Curious and concerned, Emma stood up and slowly approached the child. "Hello, dear. Are you okay?" she asked, her voice carrying the maternal concern that had never disappeared. The girl looked up, her face marked by tears and an expression of deep sadness. I always come here," she said, sobbing between words. "This is my mommy's grave, but I don't understand why it has someone else's name on it. It says Claire Scott, but that's not her name. I'm so confused." The innocence and confusion in the girl's eyes hit Emma like a punch in the stomach, bringing a new mystery she hadn't expected to find that day. Emma sat down beside the girl, her heart aching for the little one in front of her. "Let's try to figure this out together, okay?" she said, putting her arm around the girl's shoulders. "What's your name?" "Samantha," the girl replied, a faint smile appearing between her tears. "My name is Samantha Lewis." Emma nodded, determined to help Samantha find the answers they both needed. Maybe, Emma thought, helping Samantha could somehow bring peace to the shadows of the past that still haunted her heart. "Samantha, dear, tell me more about your mommy," Emma said softly, trying to start a conversation that might clarify the confusion between them. Sitting next to Samantha, she offered the girl a handkerchief, her gentle eyes encouraging her to share her story. Samantha wiped away her tears, looking at Emma with a mixture of hesitation and a need to speak. "My mommy, her name was Anna Lewis. I remember her always smiling and singing to me. She left me when I was just 5 years old," Samantha began, her voice a trembling whisper. "They told me she got very sick and passed away and that she is buried here." Jorge, the girl's father, approached. "It's true. I have brought Samantha here many times, always trying to comfort her, telling her that her mommy was resting in peace in this place. But I never understood why the name on the headstone was different. I always thought there might be some bureaucratic error or something like that," Jorge said, his voice filled with confusion and frustration. Jorge looked at the headstone with a mix of sadness and despair. "Anna was everything to us, and after she was gone, everything changed. I never received official documents about the burial, just verbal assurances from the hospital and the funeral home. When I saw the name Claire Scott here, I didn't know what to think. We were so overwhelmed by grief that I didn't question as I should have," he continued, the weight of memories and unresolved doubts evident in his voice. Emma listened with empathy, feeling Jorge and Samantha's pain. "Jorge, I believe something very wrong happened here, and I'm determined to find out what it was, not just for my daughter, but for Anna and for you as well," said Emma, firming her commitment to unravel the truth behind the confusion of the headstones. Jorge nodded, grateful for Emma's determination. "Thank you, Emma. Having someone help us understand what really happened means a lot to us. Samantha deserves to know where her mother is truly resting," he replied, placing a hand on Samantha's shoulder, who nestled under the comfort of her father's touch. Emma felt a tightness in her heart hearing Jorge's words. She herself had lost a daughter and knew how deep the well of pain and uncertainty was. "No one should go through this confusion, especially a child," Emma spoke, her determination strengthening. "I will help you find answers. We need to see the cemetery records. Maybe there was some mistake or something that was overlooked." They then decided to go together to the cemetery office. "We will ask to see the records of the burial in this part of the cemetery. Something is not right, and we will find out what it is," said Emma, trying to sound confident to give courage to the girl beside her. At the office, Emma spoke firmly to the employee who attended to them. "Please, we need to see the records of the grave registered as Claire Scott's. There is a possibility that there was a mistake, and we need to clarify this for the sake of a child who lost her mother." The employee, a middle-aged man with a tired expression, nodded and began to search the files and said that this was very unusual, but that he would check what happened. Emma and Samantha waited, holding hands, while the man searched the computer and physical files. Emma turned to Samantha, giving her an encouraging smile. "We will find out everything, dear. No matter what it is, we will face it together," she said, holding Samantha's hand. The girl nodded, squeezing Emma's hand, seeking comfort in that promise. After a few minutes, the employee looked up from the computer, an expression of surprise on his face. He said that there had been an internal notice about confusion in the marking of some graves a few years ago. He could not give details now, but he would conduct a more detailed investigation. Emma felt a mix of relief and apprehension. "Please do that. We need answers," she insisted. He said he would do what he could. They thanked him, and as they left the office, Emma felt that she was one step closer to uncovering the mystery that linked two families in a web of mistakes and secrets. She decided to seek the help of a professional to resolve this situation. The next day, she went to the office of Dr. Raphael Adrian, a man whose calm demeanor inspired confidence. "Dr. Adrian, thank you for seeing me. I'm here for a very delicate and personal matter," Emma began, her voice revealing the tension of months of uncertainty and pain. Dr. Adrian nodded, encouraging her to continue. "Please, tell me how I can help you, Mrs. Adams." Emma took a deep breath, gathering the courage to explain the complex and delicate situation. "There is confusion about a grave at the local cemetery, supposedly containing the remains of my daughter. But now, there are suspicions that there may be someone else buried there." The doctor listened attentively, his hands clasped on the desk. "I understand. And how exactly do you believe I can help you with this matter?" he asked, maintaining a professional tone. Emma explained, "We need a DNA test to confirm the identity of the remains. I know it's not a common request, but it is of vital importance to me and to a little girl who is also involved in this." Dr. Adrian nodded, understanding the gravity of the request. "Conducting a DNA test on remains can be complicated but not impossible. We will need legal authorization to proceed, of course. Do you have access to these documents?" Emma confirmed that she would start handling the necessary documentation immediately. "As soon as we have the authorization, we can proceed," said Dr. Adrian, beginning to note some procedures in a notebook. "I will prepare everything on my end to ensure that once we have permission, there will be no delays. I understand that this situation must be resolved as quickly as possible." "Thank you very much, Doctor. Your help is more comforting than I can express. I hope that with your help, we can bring some peace to everyone involved." With a plan in action, Emma felt she was finally taking control of the situation, ready to face whatever the discoveries might bring. Emma was sitting on her house's porch, absent-mindedly looking at the garden she and Claire used to tend to together. The sky was tinged with the colors of the sunset, and the flowers seemed to absorb every last ray of light. As she waited for the DNA test results, her mind began to wander through the memories, bringing back moments she had shared with Claire, each now seen in a new light. She remembered a specific afternoon shortly before Claire disappeared. "Mom, there are things in this world that are necessary, even if they don't seem right," Claire had said enigmatically while she worked the soil around a new plant. At the time, Emma didn't give it much importance, but now those words echoed in her head, laden with hidden meanings. "What did you mean by that, my daughter?" Emma murmured to herself, the unease growing inside her. Another detail that now seemed strange was how Claire sometimes looked distant, as if carrying a secret too heavy to share. Emma recalled a specific night when she noticed a worried look on her daughter's face during dinner. "Is everything okay, dear?" she had asked. Claire simply smiled and assured her that it was, but her eyes said otherwise. I should have pressed for answers, Emma thought, blaming herself for her own hesitation. The weeks leading up to Claire's disappearance also came to mind. Claire had started receiving frequent calls, leaving the room to speak in a low voice. Emma had always respected her daughter's privacy, but now wished she had questioned more, been less complacent. "Who was on the other end of the line, Claire? Who pulled you away from me?" Emma's voice broke with emotion, the sense of loss enveloping her like a cold fog. Now, as she reflected on these fragments of memory, Emma began to see a clearer and more disturbing picture of her last days with Claire. Maybe all of this was a harbinger of something much larger that was to come, she concluded, a painful suspicion forming in her heart. It was like piecing together a puzzle without having all the pieces, each one revealing only a fragment of the truth. Days later, she was informed that the DNA test was ready. Emma was sitting in a chair in Dr. Adrian's office, her body tense with anticipation. She held tightly to the edge of the chair, her eyes fixed on the envelope the doctor had just opened. "The DNA test results are here," said Dr. Adrian, his voice neutral, trying to soften the impact of the news he was bringing. Emma took a deep breath, feeling her heart beat faster with each passing second. "The remains that were tested do not match your daughter's DNA, Claire," the doctor revealed. Looking directly at Emma, the room seemed to spin around her, and for a moment, Emma felt as if the air had been sucked out of the space. "No, this can't be," she murmured, her voice barely audible. Tears began to form in her eyes, the weight of reality crushing her chest. Emma tried to process the implications of those words. "So who is buried under my daughter's headstone, and where is Claire?" she asked, her voice laden with pain and confusion. Each word was like a blow, shattering the fragile hope she had held onto. Dr. Adrian offered her a handkerchief, his gaze full of sympathy. "I am very sorry, Emma. I understand that this brings more questions than answers." "I need to understand what happened, doctor," said Emma, her determination growing despite the devastation. "I need to know where my daughter is. I need to find her." Her words were firm, reflecting the resolve of a mother who would not rest until she discovered the truth about her daughter. Dr. Adrian nodded, recognizing the strength in that woman. "I will help you as much as I can, Emma. We can start by checking with the local authorities and perhaps hiring a detective. It's not an easy path, but we will do everything we can to find the answers you seek." Emma left the doctor's office with a mix of shock and determination. She knew the journey ahead would be difficult and possibly painful, but she also knew she had no choice but to move forward. "For you, Claire, I will do anything," she whispered to herself, looking at the cloudy sky as if she could find some solace there. The fight to uncover her daughter's fate was just beginning. The next day, Emma went to the office of Detective Brandon Parker. Brandon stood to greet her as soon as she entered. "Mrs. Adams, it's a pleasure to see you again. How can I help you today?" He offered her a seat in front of his desk cluttered with papers and files. Emma sat down, placing her bag beside the chair. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the situation on her shoulders. "Mr. Parker, I come to you with a very serious matter. I discovered that the remains in my daughter's grave, Claire, are not hers. I need to find out where my daughter's body is or if she is alive." Her voice trembled slightly, but her determination was clear. Brandon nodded, his face becoming more serious. "This is quite grave, Emma. Do you have any additional information that could help us get started? Any detail can be crucial." He picked up a notebook and pen, ready to jot down everything Emma said. After the DNA test showed that the remains were not Claire's, I began to think about the last days before she disappeared. I remembered strange phone calls, behaviors that didn't make sense at the time. Emma began to describe everything she remembered, each detail now seeming like a possible clue to something bigger. Brandon listened attentively, occasionally interrupting to ask for clarifications. "You mentioned phone calls. Do you know who was on the other end of the line? Are there any records of these calls?" He was already formulating a plan in his mind, considering the first steps of the investigation. At the end of the conversation, Brandon looked at Emma with a resolute expression. "We will start by checking those calls and interviewing people who were close to Claire at that time. I will do everything in my power to find your daughter, Emma. You are not alone in this." Emma felt a wave of gratitude and hope upon hearing these words. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but Brandon's presence gave her the strength to face whatever came. Brandon and Emma were sitting in a small cafe with notes and photos spread out on the table between them. Brandon pointed to a photo of a group of people, some of them circled in red. "Emma, look at this. I managed to speak with some of Claire's former colleagues and discovered that she was getting involved with people connected to very risky businesses. These here," he said, pointing to the photos, "are known in the local underworld." Emma looked at the photos, feeling a chill run down her spine. "My God, Brandon, this is much more serious than I imagined. How did my daughter get involved with these people?" Her voice was filled with fear and surprise, but also with a growing firmness. She needed to know more, to understand what had led Claire to such choices. "We are starting to piece together the puzzle, Emma. I also discovered that Claire was frequenting places that normally would not be part of her daily routine," Brandon continued, showing a map with several marked points. "These places are often associated with illicit activities. It seems she was trying to infiltrate or maybe was pressured to participate." Emma absorbed every piece of information, every name and place, recording everything in her mind. "We need to go to these places, Brandon. We need to talk to more people. If Claire was involved with this kind of crowd, there may be danger, but it could also be the key to finding out where she is now." Brandon nodded, concerned but determined. "I agree, Emma. I will arrange for us to visit these locations safely. I will contact some people who can give us cover or more information. But I need you to stay safe. I don't want you to be exposed to unnecessary risks." Emma fixed her eyes on Brandon, the resolution clear in her gaze. "I will do whatever it takes, Brandon. Nothing will stop me from discovering the truth about my daughter. Whatever it takes, I need to know what happened to Claire, and I will go to the ends of the earth if necessary." Emma's determination was palpable, a force born from the unconditional love of a mother for her daughter. Brandon, seeing this determination, knew that together they would face whatever lay ahead, no matter the cost. Emma and Brandon were in the car, driving through the less-known streets of Phoenix, areas Emma had rarely visited. Brandon drove cautiously, his eyes always alert. "These places we are visiting," he began, "are known to be hotbeds of illicit activities. We need to be extremely careful here." Emma looked out the window, observing the worn facades and shadowy alleys. "I never imagined Phoenix had these places," she said, her voice low, reflecting the tension she felt. How could Claire get involved with this? What was she thinking? "Sometimes people are drawn into these situations without realizing the danger until it's too late," Brandon replied, stopping the car near an old warehouse. "Let's start here. I've heard that this place might be a meeting point for some of Claire's contacts." They got out of the car and approached the warehouse, staying in the shadows. Emma felt her heart beat faster, every sound amplified by the silence of the area. Brandon put a finger to his lips, signaling her to stay quiet. They peeked through the dirty windows, trying to see if there was any activity inside. Inside the warehouse, they saw several people around a table, talking in low voices. Brandon pulled Emma back out of sight. "These must be some of the contacts. We can't confront them directly, it's too dangerous. I'll take some photos and try to identify them later," he whispered, taking a small camera from his jacket. Emma, still hiding, felt a mixture of fear and courage. "We have to continue, Brandon. As much as this scares me, I need to know the truth. Claire is my daughter, and I would do anything for her." Her determination reinforced Brandon's resolve, who nodded, understanding the depth of her commitment. Together they returned to the car, preparing to head to the next location, each clue bringing them closer to the truth about Claire. Brandon was in his office reviewing the photos he had taken at the warehouse when his phone rang with a call from an unknown number. Hesitantly, he answered, placing the phone to his ear. "Hello?" His voice was cautious, alert for any sign of danger. On the other end of the line, a distorted voice spoke, the words cold and direct. "You are meddling where you don't belong. Stop this investigation now." Brandon felt a chill run down his spine, but his voice remained steady. "Who is this? Why do you want me to stop?" There was a momentary silence, and then the voice responded, more menacing. "It's none of your business who we are, but if you continue, the consequences will be severe." The call was abruptly ended, leaving Brandon holding the phone, his heart beating faster with the threat. Despite the fear he felt, Brandon knew he couldn't back down now. He thought of Emma and everything she was going through. He couldn't leave her alone in this anguished search. "They are trying to intimidate us," Brandon murmured to himself, a mix of anger and determination growing within him. "But that only shows that we are on the right track. Something big is hidden, and they are desperate to keep it secret." He decided to call Emma, explaining the situation and the threats he had received. "Emma, I received a threatening call. They said to stop the investigation. I just wanted you to know." He listened carefully, waiting for her response, prepared for any sign of hesitation. Emma, on the other hand, reacted with more courage than ever. "Brandon, that's terrible, but we can't let them intimidate us. We have to continue. If they are trying to scare us, then we are getting close to the truth. Are you okay?" Her concern was evident, but her voice also carried a steely resolve. "I'm fine, Emma. And you are right. We will continue, with more caution, but we won't stop." Brandon replied, feeling strengthened by her determination. Together they agreed to take additional security measures, knowing that every step from now on would require even more courage and cunning. "Nothing will stop us, Emma. We will find out the truth no matter what," Brandon concluded, preparing for what was to come, with the certainty that the road ahead would be even more dangerous. Brandon's investigations continued. He and Emma were in his car, discreetly parked at a distance from an old abandoned factory on the outskirts of Phoenix. The location had been mentioned in a conversation overheard by an informant Brandon kept on the streets. "This is the place, Emma. My contact said this location has been used for not very legal meetings, and he mentioned Claire's name a few times," said Brandon, watching the building with binoculars. Emma felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. "Do you think she could be there now?" she asked, trying to look through the dirty car window without being seen. "I don't know, but something big is happening here, and we have to find out what it is." Brandon's voice was low but filled with determination. "We will wait until it gets a little darker. Entering there now would be too risky," Brandon suggested, putting away the binoculars and checking to ensure his gun was secure under his coat. Emma nodded, knowing that caution was their greatest ally at that moment. Hours passed, and the daylight began to fade, plunging the building into shadows. Brandon checked his watch, then looked at Emma. "It's time. We will need to be quick and quiet. Are you ready?" Emma took a deep breath, nodding. "I'm ready. Let's find my daughter." With cautious steps they approached the building. The door was ajar, as if someone had left in a hurry and forgotten to close it. Brandon entered first, with Emma right behind, both alert to any sound or movement. The interior was dark and silent, except for the distant sound of dripping water and the occasional squeak of a rat. As they explored the place, they found several signs that it had been used recently: still warm cigarettes, some food cans, and most importantly, a woman's coat that Emma recognized immediately. "This is Claire's coat. She was here," said Emma, her voice choked with emotion. Brandon placed a hand on her shoulder, a gesture of support. "We are close, Emma. We will find out what happened," he affirmed, as they continued searching the building, hopeful and alert. Brandon and Emma advanced carefully through the dark corridor of the factory when they heard low voices coming from a lit room ahead. Brandon signaled for Emma to be quiet, and they approached the slightly open door silently. Hidden, they saw a woman with her back turned, talking to another person who was out of sight. Emma watched intently, her heart pounding. "Claire?" she whispered to herself, her voice laden with emotion as she recognized the posture and gestures of the woman. Unable to contain herself, she stepped forward, entering the room. "Claire!" she called out, her voice louder than she intended. The woman turned sharply, surprised and on alert. "Who are you? How do you know that name?" she quickly asked, with clear defensiveness in her voice, trying to see who was calling her. Emma stopped, feeling a wave of emotion upon seeing her daughter's face, even though it had been altered by time and circumstances. "It's me, Emma, your mother," she said, approaching slowly, her hands extended in a gesture of peace. "Please, Claire, I know it's you. We have been looking for you for so long." Tears began to form in Emma's eyes, her voice trembling with every word. Claire hesitated, looking at Emma with a mix of confusion and recognition. "Mom," she finally murmured, the resistance in her gaze beginning to fade. Claire looked at Emma, her eyes filled with emotion and a glimpse of fear. "Mom, you shouldn't be here," she said with a trembling voice. "It's too dangerous. You need to leave. I can't risk something happening to you too." Emma, firm and unyielding, approached Claire, holding her hands gently. "I am not going anywhere, Claire. I won't let you face this alone. Wherever you are is where I need to be too. We are in this together no matter what." Claire tried to protest, the worry evident on her face. "Mom, please, I don't want you to get hurt because of me." Emma squeezed Claire's hands, looking directly into her eyes. "There is no place in the world I would rather be than by your side. Nothing will take me away from you, my daughter. We will resolve this together." Claire, seeing the determination in her mother's eyes, knew that arguing would be futile. With tear-filled eyes, she slowly nodded. I had to do this. I had to disappear. It was the only way to protect all of us." Her voice was a whisper laden with pain and regret. Emma approached and hugged Claire, holding her tightly. "None of that matters now. What matters is that you are alive and we can help you. We can protect you," said Emma, comforting her daughter. Brandon, observing the scene, remained alert, knowing they might still face dangers, but relieved to have finally found Claire and brought some peace to Emma. Sitting in a discreet corner of the same abandoned building, Emma and Claire were having an intense conversation. Claire began to explain, her face showing traces of fatigue and worry. "Mom, when I got involved with these people, I didn't know how far it would go. It started with small favors, things that seemed harmless. But then, I realized I was in something much bigger and more dangerous than I could have imagined." Emma listened, her heart tightening with each word. "They started threatening my friends, our family. I was scared, Mom. They told me the only way to ensure everyone's safety was if I disappeared. So we planned my fake death." Claire paused, swallowing hard, the pain evident in her eyes. "I didn't know what else to do. I went far away, changed my identity, everything to protect the people I love. I wanted to tell the truth, but every move I made was monitored. Only recently did I manage to get a bit of breathing room, but even so, it's not a real life." Claire sighed, resignation weighing on each word. Emma held Claire's hands, her own hands trembling. "Claire, my dear, what you went through, I can hardly imagine. But now that we know the truth, we can help you. We will find a way to end this, to bring you back home." Her voice was firm, trying to infuse some hope into the desperate situation. "I'm so tired, Mom. Tired of hiding, of living in fear. I just want to go home, but I'm afraid of the consequences my return might bring to all of us." Claire looked at Emma, seeking some comfort, some answer. Emma replied, "Claire, what you did was incredibly risky, and I'm hurt for not knowing anything. But now we need to focus on what to do to resolve your situation," Emma said, her voice carrying both the pain of what had been revealed and the determination to move forward. Claire looked at her hands, visibly shaken by having to face not only her mother, but also the consequences of her choices. "I know, Mom, and I am so sorry for everything. I was trying to protect our family, but I know I ended up doing more harm than good." Her voice was a whisper, almost lost in the silence of the room. "We will need a lawyer, someone who can help us navigate the legal issues that come with your return. Besides, we will have to talk to the police, explain everything that happened and why you faked your death," Emma explained, already thinking about the next practical steps. She knew the road ahead would be difficult and possibly full of more painful revelations. "I will be by your side, Claire. No matter what happens, we will not let you face this alone." Emma held Claire's hand, offering the physical comfort that words could not express. "We will also need emotional support. Perhaps a therapist can help you process everything that happened and deal with the trauma of living in hiding all these years." Claire nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "Thank you, Mom. I don't know if I deserve all this effort after what I caused, but I'm grateful to have you here." The emotion was evident in her voice, each word laden with regret and relief for finally being able to share her burden. "You are my daughter, and nothing in the world can change that. Together we will fix this. It will take time and it won't be easy, but we are strong. We always have been," Emma affirmed with conviction. Emma's resolution to support Claire not only renewed hope in both of them, but also strengthened the bond that fear and uncertainty had shaken. Now, more than ever, they needed each other to rebuild the lives that had been so drastically altered. Emma took her daughter home, and one day while she was there, the phone rang. She hesitated before answering, feeling a wave of anxiety. "Hello?" she said, her voice unsteady. On the other end of the line, a distorted voice threatened, "You and your detective are meddling where you shouldn't. Drop this or the consequences will be severe." The threat was clear and direct, making Emma's heart race with fear. She took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I don't know what you're talking about. We're just trying to help my daughter," Emma responded, trying to disguise the tremor in her voice. She felt vulnerable, knowing that someone was watching her every move. "Listen carefully, we are not joking. This is bigger than you imagine. If you continue, we cannot guarantee your safety or that of your loved ones," the menacing voice continued, before hanging up abruptly, leaving Emma with the phone still in her hand, her body paralyzed by fear. When Brandon arrived later, Emma told him about the call, her expression worried and fearful. "Brandon, they threatened me. I'm scared of what they might do. Maybe we should stop this," she suggested, the uncertainty clear in her voice. Brandon listened attentively, his eyes serious as he considered the situation. "Emma, I understand your fear and it's valid, but if we stop now, they will remain unpunished. We need to be cautious, of course, but we also need to continue. I'm here with you and we will ensure that everything is done as safely as possible." His determination offered a timid comfort to Emma, who nodded slowly, recognizing that despite the danger, the truth about Claire needed to be uncovered. Days after the phone threat, Emma and Brandon decided to increase their precautions. They met at a local cafe, choosing a secluded and discreet corner to discuss the next steps. "We need to be more strategic," said Brandon, looking around to make sure no one was listening. "I will contact some of my colleagues to reinforce our security and maybe install some surveillance systems at your house." Emma agreed with a nod. "I trust you, Brandon. I just don't want to put anyone else in danger. It's bad enough that I'm involved in this." Her concern was palpable, each line of her face showing the weight of the fear and responsibility she felt for those around her. "I understand, Emma, and I won't let anything happen to you. We will find out who is behind this and make sure they pay for what they've done." Brandon's voice was firm, conveying a confidence that Emma desperately needed at that moment. The detective took out his phone and dialed a number. After a few moments, he began to speak softly, describing the situation and requesting help. When he hung up, he looked at Emma with a more relaxed expression. "My colleagues will start doing night patrols near your house. Also, a friend who specializes in technology will install cameras and alarms tomorrow." Emma felt a wave of relief, knowing she wasn't alone in this fight. "Thank you, Brandon. I don't know what I would do without your help." She held his hands briefly, a gesture of gratitude and companionship. In the following days, with the new security measures in place, Emma and Brandon continued their investigation with renewed determination. After weeks of intensive investigation and many sleepless nights, Emma and Brandon finally gathered enough evidence to present a solid case against the gang involved in Claire's fake disappearance and the subsequent threats. They had managed to get documents, audio recordings, and videos that not only linked the gang members to criminal activities but also showed their direct involvement in Claire's case. Cautiously, Brandon contacted a special police unit that dealt with organized crime and corruption. They arranged a meeting at a safe location, far from prying ears. During the meeting, Brandon and Emma handed over all the material they had collected, explaining in detail each piece of evidence and how each one connected to the criminals. The officers from the specialized unit were impressed by the depth and scope of the investigation carried out by Brandon and Emma. They acted quickly, using the information provided to mount an operation to capture those involved. With the help of a tactical team, they conducted a series of coordinated raids on several gang hideouts. The operation was a success, Several gang members were arrested, including the leaders, who were caught by surprise and had no time to react or destroy additional evidence. The authorities also managed to recover a significant amount of documents and electronic materials that would further strengthen the case against the gang. Emma was present when the news of the arrests was confirmed. She felt a wave of relief and vindication, knowing that her struggle and the risks she had taken had finally brought justice. "We did it, Brandon. Finally, justice has been served," she said, her eyes brimming with tears of relief and gratitude. Brandon, standing beside Emma, shared the sense of accomplishment. "You were incredible throughout this process, Emma. Your courage and determination were essential for us to get this far." Together, they watched the beginning of the judicial process against the criminals, feeling a deep satisfaction for having helped make the streets a little safer and for having honored Claire's struggle to protect her family. On a quiet afternoon after the successful completion of the arrests, Claire, Emma, and Brandon gathered at a small cafe to celebrate their victory. Sitting at the table with them, Claire took Emma and Brandon's hands, looking at them with deep gratitude. "You know, I never thought we would get here," Claire began, her voice choked with emotion. "Mom, Brandon, I owe my life to both of you. Without your courage and determination, I don't know if I would have had the strength to face all of this." Emma smiled at her daughter, squeezing her hand affectionately. "Claire, you are my daughter, and there is nothing in the world I wouldn't do for you. Seeing you safe and justice being done is all I could ask for." Brandon, feeling equally emotional, added, "It was a difficult journey, Claire, but you showed incredible strength throughout this process. Helping you and your mother was something I did with all my heart. I'm just relieved that everything ended well." Claire looked at both of them, tears shining in her eyes. "You not only fought for me, but you also gave me the chance to start over. All I want now is to live a life that makes all this effort worthwhile. Thank you for believing in me, even when things seemed so dark." Emma and Brandon smiled, feeling a mix of relief and happiness. "There is no need for thanks, Claire. We are a family, and families take care of each other," said Emma, as Brandon nodded in agreement. "Exactly," he said, "and now we will move forward together." These moments of acknowledgement and gratitude further solidified their bond, sealing a mutual commitment to support each other no matter what the future held. Back at the cemetery where it all began, Emma and Claire, now together, walked slowly through the aisle of graves until they reached the site that had been the center of so much pain and mystery. The day was cloudy, a gentle breeze moving the leaves of the trees, bringing with it a respectful silence. Emma looked at the headstone that still bore Claire's name. She held a new plaque in her hands, one that would reveal and honor the name of the true person buried there. "We are here to do what is right, Claire. It's time to correct the mistakes of the past," said Emma, her voice firm but laden with emotion. Claire nodded, helping her mother remove the old headstone and install the new one. "I never imagined things would end up like this, Mom. It's strange to be here, not as the person buried, but as someone who still has the chance to make things right." Their hands worked together, a physical and metaphorical reconstruction of their lives. "Your name will now be remembered as it should be, and the person who rests here can finally have peace," Emma said as they finished installing the new headstone. She stepped back, observing the now correct name engraved in the stone. The headstone now read Anna Lewis, the true name of the woman who had been wrongly hidden behind Claire's identity. Claire placed fresh flowers before the new headstone, her eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry for everything, Anna. And thank you, Mom, for standing by me, even when I didn't deserve it." She looked at Emma, a mix of gratitude and remorse in her eyes. Emma embraced Claire. "We will overcome this together. What matters is that you are here, and we are correcting the mistakes. That's what families do. They support each other, no matter what." They walked away from the grave, leaving behind not just the revealed truth, but also a chapter of their lives they hoped to close, ready to start anew, together and stronger. As the investigation progressed and things returned to normal, Jorge and Claire grew closer. They began to open up to each other about their lives, fears, and hopes. One afternoon, after a long session of reviewing documents and plans for the next steps in the investigation, Jorge and Claire found themselves alone, having coffee at a small cafe near Brandon's office. Jorge looked at Claire, noticing how passionately she was dedicated to the search for truth. "Claire, I always knew you were an incredibly strong and determined woman," he said, admiration clear in his voice. Seeing you fight so fervently for your family makes me respect you even more." Claire smiled, touched by Jorge's words. "Thank you, Jorge. It's been a challenging journey, but feeling that I'm not alone in this makes all the difference. And having your support, as well as Emma's and Samantha's, it gives me the strength to keep going." As their meetings became more frequent, the mutual respect and admiration between Jorge and Claire evolved into deeper feelings. One afternoon, while walking through the park, Jorge took the initiative. "Claire, I've started to feel something more for you over these months. You've become a very important part of my life," he confessed, his heart pounding with the vulnerability of his words. Claire stopped, looking at Jorge with a mix of surprise and happiness. "I feel the same way, Jorge. I was afraid to say anything. I didn't want to complicate things. But I'm glad you feel the same," she responded, relief and joy lighting up her face. With the mystery of the headstones finally resolved, and the truth bringing peace to their lives, Jorge and Claire decided to take their relationship further. They found comfort and love in each other, two hearts that had been tested by adversity, but now united in the hope of a shared future. Samantha and Emma, seeing the emerging happiness between the two, gave their full support, happy to see that after such tumultuous times, joy was blossoming again in their lives. On a sunny afternoon, Emma, Claire, and Samantha met at the local park, a place that now symbolized a new beginning for them. Emma sat on a bench watching Claire and Samantha kicking a soccer ball on the grass. "It's good to see you two like this together," Emma said when Claire sat next to her to rest. "It feels like we can finally breathe again, like we have really left the past behind." Claire smiled, looking at Samantha, who was running joyfully. "Mom, I would never have been able to get through all of this without you. And Samantha, she somehow brought us even closer. She is like the daughter I never had." Claire's words were sincere, and Emma could see the truth in her eyes, a shine that wasn't there before. Samantha ran to them and threw herself into Emma's arms, laughing. "Grandma, will you come play with us?" Her energy was contagious, and Emma couldn't help but smile. "Of course, dear. Let's see if I still know how to play soccer." Getting up, she followed Samantha back to the field, feeling a joy she hadn't felt in a long time. As they played, Claire watched, her heart full of gratitude. "You know, Mom, I think we finally understand what is truly important. No matter what happened, we are together now, and that is what counts." She joined them, kicking the ball back to Samantha, who squealed with joy. At the end of the day, as the sun set, the three walked back home, hand in hand. Emma looked at Claire and Samantha, feeling a wave of love and protection for both of them. "We are in this together," she said, squeezing their hands, "as a family." And so, step by step, they continued their journey of rebuilding, stronger and more united than ever, ready to face whatever the future held. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to the channel. It helps me continue sharing amazing stories every day. Don't miss the next surprising story that now appears on your screen. Thank you very much for your support. See you soon.